Hi everyone, welcome to our heat wave here in Southern California. We're having triple digit temps all week long. Today actually we got a little bit lucky. We had some overcast skies this morning, so it's still about 95 degrees out here, but not quite as warm as it was yesterday. And I'm covered in shade at this point in time, but you'll probably see me starting to get shiny and sweating here in a little bit. Hope you guys are staying safe. Hope you guys are staying cool. Hope your gardens are staying cool. But most of all, stay hydrated and don't put yourself at risk to save your garden. Okay, you guys, make sure you get out in the heat or out in the gardens very early in the morning. Get your plants watered. And today's topic is all about some tips to grow veggies even in a heat wave. Yes, you absolutely can do it. It is possible. And we're going to talk about that today. But before we do that, let me say hello to those of you here in the chat. A lot of you are saying it's super hot. Sarah, 115 in Las Vegas. Oh my goodness, that is absolutely crazy. Hi Tommy, how are you doing? Nice to see you on here today. So glad that you're joining me on a Monday morning. Rod is here from Baja. Hello Rod, hopefully you're staying cool there in Baja. And let me just scroll through. Sorry, I'm adjusting my microphone here. Hope all you guys can all hear me okay. Renee, hello from Central Virginia. Fresh landscape. I'm in California, in Southern California. Stacy Bextel, hi from the Chicago area. Hello. I bet you it's nice and humid there. We're actually getting a lot more humidity than we normally do this time of year because we've had some overcast skies, some June gloom, and I've actually had a lot more problems with powdery mildew this year, earlier in the season than I ever have. Tanya, how are you? From Hampton Roads, Virginia. Great to have you here. E. Sancho 46, hello from Indiana. Garden Girl from Marina in Taylor, hi Marina in Taylor, Michigan. Let's see, Heather Bauer, Marie, hello, how are you? Just got a drip irrigation timer, that's awesome. Joyce, gardening in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's awesome. I'm glad that your garden is thriving. And Andrea, 90 in Denmark. Oh my gosh, that's really hot for Denmark. I don't think you guys get that hot very often, do you? So glad that you're here with me today. So let's jump into our tips on gardening in the heat. And if you guys have tips, I would love to hear it in the chat as well. If you're new to our live streams, welcome. How it works here is we're just here to provide some help and some support to you. We've got a great community of gardeners who come back week after week. We're so glad that you're joining us today. And we offer tips, support, resources, have a lot of fun. And then I jump back into the chat in between the tips that I share and answer your questions. So make sure you get your questions ready on gardening in the heat and feel free to offer up your tips as well. So let's jump right in. The first tip for gardening in the heat is to make sure that you actually plan for the heat by planting some heat-tolerant vegetables. So at some point in the growing season, most of us encounter a heat wave, unless you live in the far, far north, but even Canada has had a lot of heat. So get yourself some heat-tolerant vegetables planted, and hopefully you guys were able to catch the video I posted on Friday about 4 heat-tolerant greens. So lettuce doesn't always do so well in the heat. It's a cool weather vegetable, and many times it will bolt in temperatures over 75 or 80 degrees. So plant yourself some heat-tolerant greens, and that would be some kale, some chard, some New Zealand spinach is a great heat-tolerant green, and also some heat-tolerant varieties of lettuce. So here, the ones that I planted on the video right here are already sprouting. I filmed that video last Thursday and they're already coming up. They've actually been underneath my shade cloth, and I think they sprouted yesterday, maybe Saturday. So within 2 or 3 days they came up. So you can literally have yourself some heat tolerant greens. It's not too late for most gardeners to get some planted no matter where you live. You can literally be harvesting some heat tolerant greens in about a month to 6 weeks. So right here, these were also in the video. These guys are movie stars now, right? YouTube stars. This is kale, and then there's some chard. You guys can see the chard. Here we go. There's some red chard. Those are all from my heat-tolerant green seed collection. These are growing so fast, you guys. I actually planted this container, I want to say back in March, and we've been harvesting off it for months. We trimmed it way, way back. You can trim back kale and chard and they'll grow back. And I trimmed it way, way back to just a few inch stem, probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And look how much it's already grown. So if your kale or chard is looking a little bit ratty, Don't pull it out. Just prune it back, and you're going to have some brand new growth off those plants. So first tip for growing in the heat is make sure you plant heat tolerant veggies. So the greens are good. You also can grow, I pause up for a second. Okay, sorry about that. I got a phone call. I forgot to turn on airport mode. You can also plant some quick growing warm weather crops like beans and squash. Some tiny tomatoes. Those are all in my late summer garden seed collection. So whatever you do, make sure that you don't stop planting. I know it's almost the end of the summer, but most of us can still fit some crops in before the cold weather hits. If you're already getting cold weather, you can always plant the fall garden seed collection. So number one tip for growing veggies in the heat is plant some heat tolerant varieties. And I actually have a brand new product that I launched on my website on Friday along with the video. Let me find that here. It is a heat tolerant salad in a container kit. So this is really fun, you guys. It comes with the a salad in a container kit of heat tolerant greens. 5 greens in here: the kale, chard, New Zealand spinach, Paris cause romaine, 2 different kinds of kale actually, 5 varieties. Comes with the CaliKim 5-gallon smart pots and a copy of my book, Organic Gardening for Everyone, so you know exactly how to get your greens planted. So these, you can pick this up at CaliKimGardenHome.com, and I do have a sale, 15% off with the code August. And I'm running that sale through the end of the month. So you can grab your heat tolerant greens, your late summer greens, garden, or your fall garden seeds. So go over and grab that and get yourself some heat tolerant vegetables growing right now. Believe me, you are going to be so happy that you did. Okay, so I want to jump back in the chat. Send your questions here in the chat about growing heat tolerant veggies. Let me know your tips on growing heat tolerant and growing in the heat. I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much, Adam, for ordering it Friday. We are busily processing all the orders. I have my order packers inside. They are making up the seed collections, the heat tolerant seed kits, and we'll be getting those out to you in the next couple of days. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry if you can't hear. I've got my microphone on. Turn your volume up, and we'll just do the best we can. Refresh your page. So let me jump into the chat and answer your questions. Here's a question from Camilla. Hi, Camilla. Thank you so much for watching today, for joining me out here in the garden. Question: why are my beefsteak tomatoes so small? I water it twice a day, and I'm running out of time before fall and winter hits. Okay, Camilla, a couple of reasons for that. Number one, a factor as to how your tomatoes are doing is how much sunlight they're getting as well. So they do need a good amount of sunlight. Full sun is 6 to 8 hours. I don't know if you're growing in a container. If you are, you could move your container where a place where it gets more sun. It does need warm temperatures, so hopefully you're getting temperatures in the 60s at night, in the 80s, 70s, and 80s during the day. Hopefully that helps. That will definitely help if you're getting warm weather. The other thing is you want to make sure that you're regularly feeding your plants. You can either put compost around the base of your plants, give them the Vermistera worm tea, a good organic fertilizer. I love the Vermistera worm tea because it's like a shot in the arm. It's water soluble, so it's easily available or readily available to the plants, and your plants can right away take up the nutrients and start growing. So I would definitely give it some organic fertilizer if you haven't already. And containers are going to need fertilizing every 10 days or so. Your in-ground garden, you can definitely fertilize every 2 to 3 weeks. And the great thing about the Vermistera worm tea and the worm castings is that they don't burn your plants. So you can actually fertilize a little more often than you would with other organic fertilizers. So that's one reason why I really like them. They do help your plants also to be really healthy as well. Okay, comment here from Laura P. I'm so excited for the seed kits. Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate you growing and gardening along with my seed collections. Is there a topical, easy solution to keep cabbages from bugs? Thanks so much. Okay, Laura P., that is so frustrating. Those little cabbage loopers really do like the cabbages. They like the kale also. I don't know if any of you are growing broccoli or any of the brassicas yet for the fall. They also love those. A really good way to help keep the cabbage loopers from attacking is as soon as you plant those little seedlings, cover your containers or your garden beds with some type of porous type of fabric. The sheer curtains work really well. Like I have right there, that's actually a piece of a sheer curtain. Or you can actually purchase something called ag fabric on Amazon, and that just provides a cover so those little white moths that flit around don't lay their eggs. Those turn into cabbage loopers. So that really helps your crops a lot. You can also spray with my organic pest control, which is the neem, peppermint, rosemary oil combination. But the row covers might really be the way to go to just keep those moths off, and maybe just do both. That way you have some extra insurance. Okay, hi Tommy, how's it going there? Question from Tommy. Hey Kimba, is it okay to cover our entire gardens during the heat wave all day? I have umbrellas and pop-out tents, not shade cloths, so little sun would be absorbed. Okay, Tommy, that's a great question, and I would say definitely yes, especially during the kind of heat wave that we are having. You're not going to see a lot of growth anyway during a heat wave. And oh, that's one thing I meant to mention is why this big deal about a heat wave? Well, your plants, your garden vegetables are going to get really stressed out during the heat. When it hits 90 degrees, typically what happens is the blossoms on your tomatoes, your peppers, your squash tend to dry up. They just can't take that kind of intense heat. And then you're not going to get any fruit production. But either way, your plants are definitely going to slow down during a heat wave. So don't expect a lot of production out of them. Expect that they're going to get stressed, and just do what they can to help keep themselves from dying. So it's not ideal to have them covered with absolutely no sun exposure, but it certainly does beat them being killed and completely stressed out by the heat. So yeah, if you just have umbrellas and you keep them covered, maybe you want to uncover them a little bit if you're home in the morning, so they get a few hours of sunlight before the sun gets too intense, and then cover them up in the late morning hours as it starts to heat up. So I pretty much have my entire garden covered in shade cloth. I don't know how far over my camera is going to reach, but I have a huge piece of shade cloth, as you could actually see in the thumbnail of the live stream, covering the hill. I decided to invest in that this year. I think it's a 20 by 30 piece, and we'll talk more about that in the next tip, but definitely that's one huge lifesaver in the heat. So yeah, Tommy, I'd say give it a go. Much better than the alternative, which is your garden's pretty much keeling over in the heat. Okay, let me take one more question, and then we will jump back into the tips. And here's a question from Yolanda. Hi, CaliKim. How are your strawberries doing during the heat wave? Okay, they're actually doing very, very well. I have them covered. The strawberry crate tower is covered right there. I've been picking a few strawberries off them. They're not going crazy producing strawberries right now. Strawberries really don't flower and produce too much in temperatures over about 85, but they're definitely staying alive, and they're doing as well as anything else. Okay, question from Bailey. How are your watermelons doing? Okay, my watermelon and cantaloupe, a lot of you guys might have watched the melon videos over the summer. They're doing very well. The watermelons aren't getting quite as big as I would like. I'm growing the sugar babies and a couple of different varieties of cantaloupe from my melon seed collection. We actually had some accidental harvests of cantaloupes. I really wanted to come back and do a harvest video, but they actually fell off the vine. You guys might have seen that in our tomato harvest video a few weeks ago. And I wanted to come back and do another harvest video off the second cantaloupe that I had growing. But when I checked it, we were gone for a day. I checked it on Sunday. It had already fallen off and into the sling. So I'm not too sure how I'll show you guys how to harvest. Maybe once the watermelons are ready, I'll show you that. But they're holding up, and the plants are looking a little bit tattered. So the powdery mildew has kind of gotten to those. So I'd say so-so, but we have been able to eat at least one cantaloupe, which has been really, really tasty. Okay, second tip for gardening during a heat wave and growing veggies. And this might seem like common sense, but you got to make sure that you're keeping up with the watering. Okay, you guys, the vegetables, of course, are going to be stressed out and dry up. The soil will dry up a whole lot faster in a heat wave, especially your containers. You definitely need to be checking your plants daily during a heat wave, sometimes even twice daily. And I know that might seem like a lot of work, but believe me, it is worth it to not lose your vegetables, because a few days of hot weather can kill your garden, especially if you're not giving them the water that they need. So I have a video on how to water in a heat wave that you can go and check out in more detail. It's called Watering Your Garden to Beat the Heat. There'll be a link in the video description. But you may definitely need to bump up your watering time if you're using drip irrigation. For example, my containers were set to go to water for my drip irrigation. I have everything on a timer, and before the heat wave, they were watering every 3 days for about 10 minutes. I just bumped them up to water every day for 10 minutes just during this heat wave. And then once it drops down below 90 degrees, I'll readjust my watering schedule so that they don't need to be watered quite as frequently. For my in-ground garden, I used to water every 4 days. Now I'm watering every 2 to 3 days. So definitely bump up your drip irrigation times. If possible, you also want to try watering in the morning. If you're not using drip irrigation, try and get out there early in the morning before the heat of the day hits, so that you can give your plants what they need, so they can take up the water and be nice, and the leaves can be nice and hydrated, and that way they'll have a lot less heat stress in the heat of the day. So bump up your watering times, water definitely more often, water in the morning. You also want to water as deeply as you possibly can. So as I show in the video that you can go back and watch, watering your garden in the summer heat, you want to let the water, if you're watering with your hose, let the water kind of puddle up at the base of your plants. That way it gets to the roots, and let it soak in, and then water again. So definitely you want to water deeper, so the plants have that nice deep water way down deep. The roots are gonna reach down for that hydration, and the chances of them getting heat stress are much, much less. So definitely make sure you're staying in tune with your watering. Also, again, check your garden daily. Use a moisture meter if you have one. That's just a little meter on a probe that you can place into your containers or into your garden beds to see how moist the soil is down deep. But if you don't have one, just use your finger, stick it into your containers or your garden beds a couple inches down, and then if you feel that it's dry down there, you need to water. If you feel that it's wet, then you're good on watering, but do make sure that you check your garden once or even twice daily. So number 1 tip for watering during a heat wave is plant heat tolerant veggies. Number 2 tip is make sure that you're really staying in tune with watering in your garden. And that will really go a long ways to helping your garden be more productive in the heat, and just to avoid your vegetables from getting stressed out. Okay, back into the chat here. Cliff saying he lost the video. We're still on here as far as I know. So refresh your page there if for some reason you lost the video. Hopefully we are still on my hotspot. Sometimes it disconnects. So Cliff or Nisha, if you could let me know if you're able to see the video, that would be great. Okay, oh yes, and Nisha, thank you so much for mentioning this. I forgot to mention, containers do need watering more often. So you are gonna need to water your containers sometimes daily during a heat wave, sometimes even twice daily, especially in smart pots. They have aeration in these. Okay, thank you so much, Cliff, thank you. They are very aerated. This fabric is super durable, aerated, which brings oxygen to the roots a lot more than a plastic container. So they are going to need watering more often. However, the roots are going to stay healthier in these containers because they're getting more oxygen. So, but definitely don't let them dry out, because even one time of your container drying out can really stress out your plants and stunt them. So now's the time, guys. Get out there in the garden and just have fun every single day. Check your garden. Okay, so let's see here. My tomatoes had a heat stroke. Oh no, buddy dog, I'm so sorry to hear that. Hopefully you can get that taken care of and cover with shade cloth. Okay, thank you for all the feedback. Everything is still working here. It was Cliff, sorry about that. Okay, Catherine Yen, question once again. Okay, please be patient. It's hard to see all the questions, so if you asked your question and I didn't get to it, I'll get to as many as I possibly can. Is it too late to plant carrot seeds? Okay, The most frequent question I probably get asked is it too late to plant, and then the type of vegetable. And I usually try and mention this every live stream, but if you're wondering if it's too late to plant a certain vegetable, look at the days to maturity on the vegetable that you're planting, and then look at the type of vegetable it is. Is it a cool weather vegetable? Is it a warm weather vegetable? And then depending on the temperature in the area where you're planting, that's going to depend on if you can plant that vegetable currently. So for more information on that, I have a whole section on cool weather versus warm weather vegetables in my book. Days to maturity, when you can plant. So carrots, depending on the variety that you're planting, they are a cool weather vegetable. Depending on the variety, they can go from seed to harvest in 60 to 90 days. So for example, if your frost date is in October, you want to back up 60 to 90 days to see if you still have enough time to plant that vegetable. If it's below 75 degrees, then you're in pretty good shape. If it's going to be hot up until October, carrots are a cool weather vegetable, so they're probably not going to grow too well until cool weather hits. So all the information that you need is in my book. And guys, I just want to say that's one reason why I wrote the book, so that you have everything in one place. Because it's pretty hard sometimes to go through the internet and flip around, you know, look up different Google searches, and sometimes there's so much information out there. So I wrote this to make it really easy, quick, simple, and inexpensive way for you guys to get your garden growing. It's a great resource for any gardener to have in your garden library. So you can grab a signed copy over at CaliKimGardenandHome.com. Okay, let's jump into our third tip for today. And that is, we've already mentioned this quite a bit, but that is your third tip for growing veggies in the heat is grow under shade cloth when the temperatures hit 90 degrees. So as I mentioned, flowers tend to drop off and dry up and drop off in the heat, which means you kind of have to start over with your tomato production or your pepper production or your squash, whatever the case might be. The plants will get stressed out, and it literally can be about 10 to 15 degrees cooler under the heat. So let me show you the shade cloth that is in the garden bed right behind me here. I'm in front of my red and yellow garden planter that a lot of you may have seen in my This Week in the Garden videos. So I've got a black shade cloth over it. I believe that is a either 40 or 50% block, which basically it means it blocks out 40 to 50% of the sun's rays. So on a day like today, when it's going to be 100 degrees, that can bring your temperature down to around 85 degrees under the shade cloth, which can absolutely save your plants. So highly recommend that. You can pick it up on Amazon. If you need a link, there'll be a link in the video description. You can, a lot of times your garden centers will have it as well. And I would recommend using anywhere between a 40 to a 60% shade block. Doesn't really matter a whole lot if you live in a really hot area where it's over 100 degrees quite frequently. You might want to go more on the high end of the shade cloth, like maybe a 60%. And even some gardeners, I know we have like Pat Sella and P. Treadway in super hot climates like Arizona, where it's always over 100 degrees. They grow under shade cloth all summer, and they're able to still have a very productive garden. So it definitely does allow some sunlight to get through. Now, you guys, if you are not able to access or buy shade cloth or don't have any, use what you have around the house. So one very simple idea is old sheer curtains. That sheer curtain right over there, that white thing, is just a piece of sheer fabric that I've had probably for 20 years, literally. I'm embarrassed to say that, but 20 years, and pulled it out of my closet a couple years ago to use it for a shade cloth. I think at one point it was a curtain or something like that, and I just cut it up and used it in the garden. I've been using it for years. You can also use a sheet. I ran out of shade cloth, so I've got a sheet covering my veggie pod right there. And again, it's not getting sunlight, but I'd prefer that rather than having my plants get burned up. You can also just use old beach umbrellas, umbrellas that you might use for your patio table or anything like that. So super, super easy to do. I show how to do it on a video we posted a couple months ago called Early Heat Wave, 4 Tips to Protect Your Veggies. So if you need a little demo on it, go back and watch that video in more detail. So easy, you guys. You don't have to put up a permanent structure. Just put some stakes in the ground and clip it on with some little clips. This here shade cloth is just clipped on with some clips I picked up at the hardware store. So just keep it simple, keep it inexpensive, keep it within your budget, and you will be so thankful that you did because your plants will survive the heat wave. Okay, thank you so much, Marie, for the $5 super chat. I really appreciate your support. Marie is a longtime supporter, and she says, for more shade cloth. Oh, thank you, Marie. You're so sweet. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you for helping my veggies in this heat wave. Wow, that's so sweet of you. Thank you so much. I actually do need to pick up a couple more pieces of shade cloth because I do have a few spots where it's not covered, as you saw in shade cloth. So thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, let me know if you guys are using shade cloth in your garden. I know a lot of people, I've gotten a lot of comments on YouTube that they're using it for the first time and really seeing a huge, huge difference in your garden. So let me just see if I had anything more to cover on that point here. I think we're good. So let me know what you're using for shade and how it's working for you in your garden. Okay, let's see here. Every year is different. I'm learning all the time from Catherine. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. We are all learning from each other, and that's the beauty of this community, is that there's gardeners here, all different levels of gardeners. Nobody knows everything, right? We're all experts in some areas, but not in all areas. So it's really great to be learning from each other. Thank you so much for that comment. Okay, comment here from Cheryl. How tall does a shade cloth have to be over the plants? There's no hard and fast rule on that. As long as it covers the plants, you can really just adjust it to the situation that you have. It doesn't have to be way over the plants. It can be touching the plants. A lot of times I'll just drape it over a tomato cage, or even just throw it over that white shade cloth there. The white sheer curtain is covering a strawberry crate. So I just threw it over the strawberry crate. It's okay if it's touching the plants. You don't want to use plastic. I should have mentioned that. You want to use something that lets air get in. Plastic is going to fry your plants. So do not use like a black garbage bag. Do not use a clear piece of plastic. That will kill your plants, no doubt about it. So use something that has some good airflow. Burlap, regular purchased shade cloth, a sheet, hopefully something lightweight that will allow airflow to get through so that your plants still do get that air. Okay, and my screen just dimmed. I did set it not to dim, but it is really, really hard to see your comments. Plus my eyes are probably getting a little bad too, okay, I got to admit, but it's definitely the dimming situation here. So, okay, I am going to jump back and talk about our fourth tip because it is getting hot out here. So I may have to cut the live stream a little bit shorter than we normally do. I don't want my phone to overheat either, like sometimes it does in the heat. Okay, so the fourth tip to gardening in a heat wave, and I am telling you guys, this one will literally save your garden, is mulch. I cannot believe the difference between mulching and not mulching. If you don't know what mulch is, it is just something that you put over the soil so your soil is not bare. So during a heat wave, normally during the summer, I like to spread about 2 inches or so of mulch around my garden beds to help with water evaporation. Especially during a heat wave though, you can add even a couple more inches. So a few of my favorite things to use for mulch are shredded leaves. In fact, that's the main thing I use for mulch. I have a friend who saves me all of his leaves in the fall, and I stockpile them and then I use them all summer long. Now, if you don't have access to shredded leaves right now, because I realize it's summertime, the leaves aren't really falling yet in most areas, get yourself a couple bales of straw and spread that around your garden beds a few inches deep. The advantage about straw too is it's also light colored, so it's going to absorb less heat, and you'll be amazed at how much less you have to water, and also reduces the stress on your plants because it's helped keeping the roots cool. So you're going to see a lot less wilting, and it really is such a lifesaver, especially in your containers. Now, this container right here, I have not mulched yet. I'm going to wait until the plants get a little bit bigger, and then I'll probably thin them out and then mulch with a couple inches of shredded leaves. I'm actually running out of shredded leaves though, so I may have to grab a couple bales of straw if I run out. So I would love to hear what you all are using for mulch here in the chat. But if you can at all possible during the heat, add some extra mulch to your plants. It is a lifesaver. I personally don't prefer to use wood chips because you do need to have really high quality wood chips, or you can spread disease to the rest of your garden beds. And you don't want to mix the wood chips in with your soil because that can really rob the nitrogen from the soil. You definitely don't want to use the colored wood chips that you see at Home Depot. If you do use wood chips, make sure that they're high quality. I don't prefer the like the chip drop type situations because you don't know what those trees have been treated with. So anyway, that's just my own personal preference. But let me know here in the chat what you're using for mulch and what difference that you have seen with it on your garden. Okay, so whoops. Let me see here if I can read any of your comments here. Is there a... Oh my gosh, my screen is just like went dark on me. I think my phone is maybe getting a little stressed out here. Okay, I'm sorry guys. I am not going to be able to read too many more of your questions here. I am going to go into tip number 5. This is actually a bonus tip here. And that would be about pruning. I get a lot of questions about pruning your plants during a heat wave. And my advice is to, if at all possible, hold off on pruning your plants during a heat wave. And by pruning, I just mean trimming, doing any major trimming. Like I always like to keep my tomato plants, the bottom of my tomato plants, free from leaves to just give it more airflow. If you're having any major issues with your plants and can at all hold off on pruning till after the heat wave, I would recommend it just because those extra leaves are going to supply more shade for your plants, more shade for the soil, and help keep your plants cooler. Peppers kind of like a little bit of shade so the peppers don't get sun scalded. So during a heat wave, if at all possible, try and avoid pruning your plants. Now, that being said, if you're having some major disease issues, for example, yesterday I went around and clipped off leaves that were starting to get powdery mildew. I do like to keep those pruned, but you just kind of have to weigh out the pros versus the cons. If you're going to heavily prune, that just means that your plant is going to be exposed to more sun. So just be aware of that and keep in mind that that particular plant might have a little bit more heat stress because it won't have as much coverage. You know, the cucumbers or whatever fruit you happen to have on the vines or the plants won't have as much coverage from the sun. So just keep that in mind, and if at all possible, hold off on pruning until after your heat wave. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can read any of your comments here. My phone is actually getting stressed out in the heat as well. Let me see here. It is really hard to read the comments, guys. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it here. So I am actually going to go ahead and cut the live stream short. I apologize for not getting to your questions. But keep up gardening during the heat. Make sure you follow these 4 tips. Actually 5 tips with the bonus. Plant yourself some new vegetables that are heat tolerant. If you need seeds, grab that heat tolerant garden salad in a container kit. Make sure that you're checking your garden every single day. Use shade cloth, umbrellas, any type of thing that you can use to shade your plants. Mulch if at all possible, and hold off on pruning if you can. You know what, I'm going to check and see if my computer, if I can get on. Oh, here we go. If it will let me get on to the chat here on my computer. And okay, here's I don't know how recent these are in the chat here. Let me go to the live chat. Hold on just a second, you guys. Okay, I'm scrolling through. Pamela Roberts, lots of heat in Texas. And go get in the shade, Kim. You deserve a short one, my friend. Thank you so much. Sweet pepper leaves are droopy from Pamela. Yes, that is a natural reaction in the heat. Droopy leaves don't necessarily mean that your plants need water. That's a very natural reaction. You'll see that in your cucumbers, in your squash, peppers as well. So just make sure that you are checking to make sure your plants actually do need water. But it is a natural reaction. Yeah, Marie, definitely you want to add some mulch. And Yvonne, question, what about in containers, Kim? Not a lot of space, but do you feel mulching is still needed? Yes, absolutely. If at all possible, do mulch your containers because containers dry out much, much quicker. And when you're mulching, you're going to have to water them much less often. So there's a huge difference between the containers that I've mulched, containers that I haven't mulched, as far as how often they need watering. So even spread a few more inches of mulch in your containers if at all possible during a heat wave. So very, very important to mulch as much as you can. You can mulch up to 6 inches or so if you have enough mulch, but at least 2 inches, you're going to see a huge difference in the water evaporation and the stress that your plants are going through during a heat wave. Okay guys, it's getting hot, so I actually am gonna go ahead and call the live stream. Stay cool this week, you guys, stay safe. I know a lot of you might be dealing with even smoke from the fires here in California, so stay safe, stay inside, stay hydrated, and let's just keep on supporting each other through our garden community here. So I really appreciate you guys joining me. Again, I know you have a lot of choices where you can spend your Monday afternoon, and thanks for spending it here with me. All right, guys, have a great week, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.